Smile, if you're ready, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Winnie Lubembe, like she said. And a very good afternoon to you guys. It's afternoon, right? Yeah, good afternoon. We've had some snacks, so suddenly the energy levels must be a bit happier. All right, my name is Zainab Ismail. I'm a journalist. I work with the Nation Media Group, and I'm certainly very privileged to be part of this conversation of Earthwise Summit 2024. And trust me, we have an incredible panel that is set to have that discussion here. And you know, I must say, much like great pizza, no, let me bring it home. Much like great pilau, you need and require the best of ingredients. And the young people of not just this nation, but globally, are a key ingredient in the conversation around climate change and a sustainable future. And that is why we have the panelists that we've prepared to have a conversation with here this afternoon. So the skit that we've had from the St. Mary People's Environmental Club, that was quite a big challenge, and I'm so proud of them. And in fact, I'm going to start my introduction with the youngest here of the students, the pupils from St. Mary's, and that is Aidan Kahiga. He is 9 years old. He is in grade 4, and he serves as what we've heard from the teacher, the Cabinet Secretary for Climate Action at the school's Environmental Club. That is quite a feat. Thank you, Bonacias, for joining us. And of course, we also do have the teacher, and that is Kasisi Daniel. Well, Kasisi Daniel is a dedicated primary school teacher who is serving at the St. Mary's School here in Nairobi. He is the co-founder of the Eco Changes Initiative, has over a decade of experience in teaching, and of course, he is also as a focal point for the teachers for SDGs e-learning course. He also integrates sustainability into education, like what we've seen here. And also, he's committed to advocating for sustainability and environmental consciousness in education. Thank you so much, Mwalimu, for joining us here and also for bringing your pupils here to allow us to learn more from them. I would also like to introduce Joseph Ngudhiru. Kindly make yourself available here on the podium. Joseph Ngudhiru is a climate tech engineer. He's passionate about sustainability, and he's also the presidential awardee for the best innovator in Kenya. Quite a huge feat, by the way. His work includes designing the solar dryer being used to revive the country's pyrethrum farming. Yes, he's a young man, and of course, he'll be telling us more about that. He's also a co-founder of at MC2, it's a startup that leverages AI as an early warning system for deforestation, wildfires, and charcoal burning. His roles also include being a co-founder and engineer at AfroClimate. That's a nonprofit that empowers African entrepreneurs to tackle climate change. And also is the co-founder at the Killing Society and is a contact point at the Science Working Group in Yango. Well, Joseph is also an Obama leader and part of the 40 under 40 Africa. Yes. And finally, but not least, Mana Omar. Kindly make yourself available for us here. Mana Omar is a climate scientist by profession. She's a climate justice and gender advocate for the indigenous pastoralist communities of Kenya and the founder and CEO of Spring of the Arid and Semi-Arid Lands. She's also a youth leader with the UN Women Feminist Action for Climate Justice Action Coalition. She's the lead of Fridays for Future Kajiado and Refugees for Future Kenya. She's also a member of Fridays for Future Most Affected Peoples and Areas. Thank you so much, Mana, for joining us for this conversation as well. And of course, young people, like I said, are a key ingredient in the conversation in the climate space. And I want to first give an opportunity to our youngest panelist here, and that is Aidan Kahiga. Aidan, tell us, you're quite young. You are in the Environmental Club. You are serving as the Cabinet Secretary for Climate Action in that club. What inspires you? Why do you enjoy working in the climate space, and what do you enjoy about the environment? Just hold on your mic like this so we can hear you.
It really gives me joy,
Uh-huh.
and I'd also like to take part in saving the world from pollution, greenhouse gases, and other things.
Mm-hmm.
And if children are really helped, it can make a big difference.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It is indeed true. And it starts from your age. It starts from understanding why the environment is important. Is that true? Great. We'll come back to you. So let me get to you, Joseph. First of all, I really want to hear about your contribution and engagement in the climate space and some of the things that you're doing that are having an impact in terms of ensuring that we have a sustainable future.
First of all, kudos to the young kids. I don't think at grade 4 I used to know the meaning of greenhouse gases.
Right?
Okay, raise your hand if you used to say the word climate change when you're in grade 4. No one. No one. So I think that's the future, and I really love it. So my name is Joseph Nguthiru. I run a couple of initiatives in the climate space. One of them is called Hyapack, where we make biodegradable plastics out of the invasive water hyacinth. And then you mentioned about MC2, where we're using, in collaboration with the KFS, we're using AI to monitor for deforestation and charcoal burning, also like in forests like Ngong Forest. And what you're basically trying to do is using these skills and emerging technologies and all what we learned in school and everywhere else, and try to implement that to address the current, I don't want to say climate change, but I want to say what is literally like affecting local communities, pollution and stuff like energy and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. We'll come back to really look into the issue of tech as well and innovation and how that can be leveraged in terms of climate change. But Mana, also very quickly, just give us a glimpse of your contribution, your engagement. I know you work closely with communities as well, pastoral communities. Talk to us about that and how that is impacting your work in climate action.
Thank you so much, Zainab. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to be on this panel, and thank you for the invite and for the Nation Media Group for convening such an important session. So, as introduced earlier, my name is Mana Omar. My first description is the founder and executive director of Spring of the Arid and Semi-Arid Lands. It's an ungovernmental youth-led organization, and we are currently working in Kajiado County, but we have coverage in Samburu, Narok, on certain projects that we run. Our involvement in climate action, first of all, involves, there's one project we have that's quite innovative and groundbreaking. That's called the Enkang model. Enkang is a Maasai name, basically meaning a home, or rather a house, okay? Just basically like the way Maasais live. And this is an innovative, gender equal, and climate resilient village that we are using to show people through observational learning how they can build climate resilience. I will not really speak much of it right now. We're also working on issues to do with climate justice, specifically representing the pastoralists' voices, which we feel are excluded from the climate decision-making space. We are also championing regreening, or rather restoration, using agroforestry as a technique. And lastly, last but not least, we have a climate storytelling aspect where we also tell stories of these communities, their resilience, the effects of climate change on them through documentaries. And lastly is a health clinic that we run to specifically respond to gender-based violence that women and girls from this community face as a result of effects that are brought to them by climate change. For example, walking long distances to fetch water, and as a result getting maybe molested, abused by their partners, maybe when they delay in their chores and all that. So that's basically a bit about what we do and how I engage myself in climate action through the organization. But on a personal basis, I'm a climate activist. I'm a passionate gender justice activist, and I tend to focus on the rights of pastoralists, because I feel like these are the most affected communities in Kenya, yet we are least represented.
All right. Thank you, Mana. Now, Mwalimu Kasisi, maybe talk to us about your role as an educator in empowering the young people to becoming effective leaders in climate action.
Okay, thank you, Zainab, and for the extension, the Nation Media Group, for such platforms to get opportunity, at least for the voice of the voiceless who are so powerful, but not given opportunity. So my first point would be, if you look at even the programs that are existing, we talk of the youth, women, and maybe persons with disability in terms of the affirmative issues. But I think I persuade organizations, both government and non-governmental, to start with children, then youth, then women, and then persons with disability, as part of people who have been forgotten, and if empowered, they can do so much. My passion, or the reason as to why I drew myself into this, that was in 2018. There was a pop-up on internet of a possible sixth mass extinction of humanity, and the theory was attaching climate change or global warming as the cause for such, should we not take the right action. So then I developed interest to know what was all about the global warming. I learned of the greenhouse gases. I learned of the SDGs constitution or institutionalization 2015, where in Paris, the UN member states committed themselves to reduce the carbon emissions or stop where necessary, and then generally to just cleanse what we say the ecological sins that are everywhere, either through commission or omission. I walk everywhere, simple things, like just being in charge of your waste is actually a problem. Yet there's no waste that produces itself. I will struggle when I'm hungry to look for food, eat, whatever energy it will take me, but after eating, the wrapper where it falls, it's none of my problem. I start blaming someone. So I thought, could it be that we have the gender weakness that the behavior of the current generation, my generation, and the generation that is ahead of us has a problem? Then I did a bit of research. I realized behavior change, if we impart a child, the holy book for the Christians, they say, there's a place where they say, teach a child the way to grow. And when they grow, they will not depart from it. So I was inspired as a primary teacher that what if, it was an hypothetical statement, what if I invested in the youngest of our generations to make them know that you do not do this ecological cleansing and ecological conversion for this purpose of maybe salary or anything like that. I tried when I was at Loreto Valley Road, and I saw it working. Students could call and say, Mwalimu, it's like you have employed NEMA people in the house. You can't litter. You can't be watching when lights are on in the screen because they think you are wasting the energy because you don't need light to watch a TV. And that developed an interest. Maybe to flash forward, between 2018 up to now, I've done a lot of partnership, empowerment at personal level. And I realized that if you invest in the youngest of the generations, then you are sure of the future.
And Mwalimu, just to interject you, when you're looking at our current education system, do you feel like there's a gap in terms of incorporating conversations and knowledge about climate change into the syllabus? Or where are we at? And what more can we do then?
Okay, I'm privileged to be in a school that offers both national and international curriculum. And for the national curriculum, international curriculum already has this aspect of global citizenship. And you cannot talk about global citizenship without the global agenda, which in a bigger way about climate justice. Then for the national curriculum, which is commonly known as the CBC, quite misinformation made people to make a lot of noise when it was introduced. But if you look at it and look at the curriculum design, the curriculum designers meant well. If you look at it, there's something called the PCIs in the lesson plans, which is pertinent and contemporary issues, which is actually the UN SDGs. So we are encouraged to do that, but then, so the curriculum already caters for it. The education curriculum developers, the government already has envisaged that. So what is to be implemented, the problem is practicalization. You teach practically, then you teach theoretically, then practically it needs resources, so then it needs a lot of partnership, and unfortunately the organizations that are promoting these SDG projects do not know how to link with the schools, so that somebody will think today of planting trees. Then you think planting with the children will be a good thing. You come to my school, you bundle me out of class, come, we do the planting. When in real sense, according to the curriculum design, like grade 4 already has the drip irrigation using water bottles. So if we align the organizations and government and non-governmental organizations, aligned their practices or their activities with the curriculum so that they don't interrupt, then the curriculum as it is, it has so much.
All right.
And that is why we need to empower the teacher so that they can easily empower the children.
All right. And I'll come to you, Joseph, in a moment, and we'll talk about how we can merge then the education that we're getting from the schools and learning institutions and leveraging that in terms of innovation on climate action. But let me speak to young Aiden first. Aiden, what have you learned from Mwalimu here when you guys go out as a club? You know, what do you do that you feel helps the environment in terms of perhaps planting trees? Just give us examples of what you guys do when you're out there as a club.
When we're out there as a club, we plant trees, we water them, we empower people to pick up litter, we pick up litter. And we also reuse bottles, plastics, and we also recycle them.
So wow, fantastic, yes, a round of applause for young Aiden. So what, and when you go home, what do you tell your parents about the environment?
When I go home, I tell my parents that I've learned from Mr. Kasisi, and I also want to tell them about how they can do stuff like normally at home to reuse things, recycle things, and other.
Fantastic. Thank you, Aidan. And so suddenly you can clearly see the impact of inculcating that knowledge at such a young age. And so when you have that, and that's, you know, the knowledge that is needed as you continue growing up, now leveraging on that and using talent to coming up with those innovative solutions to tackle climate change. How do we merge those two now?
So I'd like to pick from where Mwalimu left it. I love the model that you're doing. I completely love it. But I think then we have a broken link in our higher education and TVETs. I graduated last year from Egerton. I did water and environmental engineering, that is under civil engineering. And nowhere in my 5 years of education and 1 year of Corona were we ever taught that, it took too long. Nowhere were we ever taught how to do green buildings, because climate change, again, you have to look at the emissions that are coming from the construction sector. We were not taught about how to mitigate that. Guys doing electrical engineering are never taught how to make electric vehicles. If you're doing a course on economics, BCom, and so on, you're never taught about climate financing, which, in my opinion, those are the green jobs that we need for the future. If you're doing, food nutrition, dietetics, or food science, or so on, nowhere are you ever taught that the methane that's going to be used because a third of the food produced worldwide goes to waste, and how can you do innovations around that? So I think there are these gaps that we have in our education system that we are simply not matching up. And the problem is you get graduates coming out of school and their skills do not and will not match up to the jobs of the future unless they themselves go out of their way to learn something else and to learn something that is not in the curriculum. And that also goes to tell you how much of a disconnect we have between the private sector and the academia. Because I would expect banks to go to school and tell the institutions that, look, all our financial models right now, all our bank statements right now always come with an aspect of climate change and how much financing is going to this particular kind of projects. I expect tech companies to go to universities and tell young people how stuff like AI might be good, but it's consuming too much energy, and how can students innovate around that so that we don't then have, making 2 steps forward and 5 steps back. So I think there's a disconnect, and we really need to look at how can we fast track these changes, because if you look at every report, WEF, World Bank, everyone else, they say that they give some big estimates of how much demand is going to be there for the green jobs. And right now, the one thing that is disturbing the government and young people in this room is employment.
Right.
So you have people who do not have employment. You have green jobs on this other side. And the reason why these people do not have employment is because they don't have green skills. And these green skills not come because the education system does not give them that. So that's the disconnect I see. But
So do you feel we need a radical shift in terms of the skills, that the courses that we're providing in our TVETs, in our other, higher learning institutions as well?
Yep, yeah, I love what they're doing at that age. But when it comes to TVETs, let's even start from secondary schools. What people are learning in class should be equated to what is happening out there in the job industry,
Right.
and what is estimated and what is foreseen to be happening in the job industries until like 2050 or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Mana, if we do not move fast, we're going to find ourselves behind in the future, where everything has changed, but as young people in this country, in this continent, then we lack the sufficient skills that we need to deal with the impact of climate change ahead of us. So how do we begin addressing that from a perhaps policy perspective then?
Okay, so Zainab, you're taking me back to something I've been really thinking about, which is a biggest challenge in youth-led initiatives or youth-driving climate action, especially at grassroots level, where I feel like we really need policy reforms. Like we need policies that support youth-led initiatives, because I feel like we are really tokenized, to be honest, in all my honesty. Most of the spaces that we are in or contributing at, you get that we're just there to tick the box of inclusion that youths contributed. I also feel like, from my own experience as a youth leader trying to engage with governments with zero visibility, it's really hard for them to buy in our ideas and our projects. As we all know, youths are very, very innovative, and we are very passionate and try to address challenges with out of the world ideas. We want to use innovative ideas to do such things, and it's really hard for our policy makers, our government officials, to buy this idea. They feel like it's too ambitious. So it's become a great hindrance to us in climate action, and we'd really like to ask our leaders to trust in youth-led solutions. Despite how ambitious it is, climate change is also complex, highly changing, interconnected. So there's need for these ambitious youth-led projects to address this complex issue that is constantly changing, evolving, and bringing in forth a lot of problems.
Mwalimu, Mana raised an issue of the youth tokenism, let me call it that. She called it tokenism, that they're there to just tick the box that, look, yes, we had young people in this panel, we had young people in this conversation, that's it. But really, what is the essence of ensuring that, yes, when we have young people have a seat at the table, that their ideas are incorporated in the policies that we are coming up with from a government perspective, from even, from a global policy perspective as well?
Okay, I'll pick it up from the SDG number 13, partnership. I realize there's a lot of, as my friend has said, the climate technical guy, he has said that while within the 5 years he was in college, he never heard about this. If we take the 5 years back, we still land within the era of SDGs. I suspect he might have had maybe the internet or maybe access a smartphone. Had he maybe stumbled on that information, even without the college mentioning about it, maybe he could have heard about it. So then I'll also encourage you that if you look at now the current curriculum, they have said in the next, when the children are done with the grade 9, they branch into what they call the career paths. So these career paths, this is an opportunity for us who are informed to run to the agencies that need to implement the policies. I was sharing with a friend, was it in 2021, with the PS who was in environment then. And I told him, if a child can fly a drone to do the seeding using the seed balls, do we wait until the child is 18 as per the national laws, or he can be guided and fly the drone in Gong and do the seeding supported by the policies? And he told me, you do something, then call us, let us see the practicability of it, then we push the policy. I recently went to the Directorate of SDGs, and I realized they're also shocked to understand that there's a team of teachers learning about SDGs. So I think the policies cut across, you blame, not even blaming, but we empower both sides. While the government is there, can it be the onus of organizations and individuals pushing sustainability issues to approach the government departments that are concerned with these issues, the policies? Then you don't go free. Come up with a proposal of the policy that you want, so that we go together and push that policy. You've seen a lot of reforms. I think this also happens like just in the political scenario. If you need reforms, there's an approach. First, people with the common agenda, then formulate what you need, follow the procedure, and something will happen. So for me, it has not been, I've gone to the TSC, reached out to tell them, you see, you are pushing the agenda. When I look at your strategic plan, it talks about SDG number 4. But then the teachers who are your employees, when you ask them what is SDG, they wonder what you're talking about. But if you check in the curriculum design, there is SDG. But when you look at the exam setter, he is not setting anything about SDGs. So it does not motivate the teacher to go an extra mile to learn about SDGs. So it is a gap that requires everybody playing the part. But the policy issues, as you are saying, it requires me who is informed to inform who is in authority. I was sharing with somebody that, you see, the purpose of a tree planted by a child like this one and a tree planted by an old person, it is the same. But why should we have this begging for resources, as she's saying, tokenism? When I want to plant a tree, I need to beg. There is no set aside resources for the children, as if a tree planted by a child will absorb or will sink less carbon. then the type of, again, the tokenism issue, kindly allow me to finish that point.
All right.
Like trees, not all trees are just good. Yeah, we've learned there's a lot of debate in terms of which tree can absorb what amount of, or can sink what amount of carbon. Which tree will be a motivator for this child to see that if I plant a tree, let's say a house avocado in our school, then after 2.5 years he starts harvesting the fruits. He'll be very motivated. But most of the trees that are being given out here freely, they are like gravelia. You'll come to our school, you plant trees knowing after 10 years you are going to harvest them as timber. What is the benefit of this child? So if you stick to, let's say, fruit trees and talk of the quality seedlings of fruit trees, most of them range between 150 to almost as high as 600, 800 macadamia, which we've done a bit in our school for the orchards. Right. So if you started such an initiative, it will require a lot of resources, not the tokens that we are given. Somebody gives you seedlings. Last year I refused to, as an environmental club patron, to pick 1,000 seedlings from an organization, because for us we were establishing an orchard and we had space to plant and grow 200. So when I told them we only have space for 200, I was told you either take 1,000 or none.
All right.
Why? Because we need to fill in the forms that we've given 1,000. Where do I take the 800? The person lacks the integrity and tells you, even if you throw them, that's none of our business. So the tokenism has to stop. We need a strategic way of seeing how do we empower the children, the youth, whatever the brackets, with the real resources as the government are demanding for climate justice in terms of compensation.
Fantastic point. And I know that Joseph has something to say about that. Perhaps, yeah, you can, I know you wanted to add something on that.
Just to carry on from what she said and him. I think policies cut both ways. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, the work of the government is to make life easier for the citizens in whatever aspect of their lives. And if we want to help young people, because what young people need is financing for their projects. They need just a bit of empowerment so that they can move to the next level and scale up whatever small businesses they're doing. So reducing the barriers to entry, reducing the amount of money that it takes you to register an NGO or a startup, KRA can be more flexible towards the youth. Such small incentives make young people more open-minded and more creative to making good initiatives that can get either funding inside the country or outside the country. But again, it also goes to capacity building. We, the youth, probably have ourselves to blame on some aspects. I mentioned about the skills, but again, I think we have so much internal non-collaborations that we needed to have as young people, because the synergies that we can create in between ourselves can be so much that we can move a lot of these KPIs and tokenisms out of the way and really impact this climate space.
Mm-hmm. Mana, certainly a very interesting point there. A huge challenge in developing homegrown solutions. And of course, when we're still looking at the issues of challenges and obstacles, in your area, in your perspective, as you work with vulnerable communities as well, because that's something you're very passionate about, what is it one thing that hinders you as a young leader in this climate space that perhaps would be of essential, would be necessary for not just the government, but the communities to understand, for you to be able to, and for all of us to be able to create that space to thrive and to create a better and sustainable future for all of us?
Yeah, thank you so much, Zainab. Allow me to put on the gender lens a bit. So as a young female leader in climate action, working with communities that are largely patriarchal. Kenya as a society is patriarchal. But guys, I don't need to tell you about pastoralists. We are just too patriarchal. Ours is above the line, it's above the scale. So as a female leader working with these communities, first of all, my leadership is extremely undervalued, because there's this stereotype that female leadership doesn't work, and that there's this way, like how they perceive and the cultural beliefs that are there with pastoralists, that men lead better, men can make better decisions, and females are just placed for some roles which are now gendered roles, for example, like domestic chores that we do. So me providing insights, direction in a project, guiding the implementation of a project doesn't really sit well with a lot of people, even in my own community. So I'm a girl raised in Maasai land, yet born, from Mandera originally, but I've never been there, but I've been raised and born and raised in Kajiado, that is Maasai land, and we've been assimilated into the culture. But still, I've seen that. I'm working with the same people that have seen me grow, but we still have that problem, the problem of gender bias, where women are not given, like we are not taken as seriously as our male counterparts in leading climate action. And if you see, most women-led solutions are impactful. Most women-led solutions really work, because we have that instinct in us, that mother instinct in us that guides the whole project implementation and all that. I'd also like to mention the issue of limited funding access. I thought, as a young leader, I thought in the first place that I would never get funding for my project. But I got funding. But then there are other issues that come with that funding, which is in terms of when you get unrestricted and restricted funding support. So that's another dynamic that we don't really consider when we are applying for this funding. And when you get the funding, you're overjoyed and over the moon that finally the project that people thought was so ambitious is something that somebody already bought the idea. Now you have the funding. Now it comes to the part of restricted funding, where you see these donors that are giving us funding don't really have an idea of how to engage with these communities. It's not an easy thing. I think it's the biggest challenge that youth-led initiatives are facing. Youth-led initiatives are impactful because we are working with these communities. We understand the communities, and our initiatives are deeply rooted in engaging communities. Like the past speaker in the panel said, this has to be community-led. But there are issues within these engagements that really need an innovative approach, even to the way we approach solving issues. Like, I know most of us will think of innovation as, like me, for example, if you tell me about innovation, I'll think about AI. I'll think about a gadget that will be used to sequester carbon from the atmosphere. But I've never thought that I'll have that perspective of innovation in handling communities. Because you have to know how to navigate their challenge. Otherwise, the whole donor project comes down and you're asked to pay back the money. So the unrestricted funding is really critical to ensure that our solutions they grow the necessary roots and that they are really impactful.
All right, fantastic, fantastic. Mwalimu Kasisi, because I see that our time is also running out, I'm going to give you an opportunity to make your last remarks as we move forward. And from just where you sit as an educator and somebody who believes so intensely on SDGs and its impact, and especially empowering young children as young as Aiden, what we need to do, and also looking at the innovations that we need to employ to ensure that we reach that goal.
Okay, thank you. Then it's also good for the audience to know that they are in grade 3, not grade 4.
Fantastic.
And I would say human ability is infinity. But people can do as much or as less as they're empowered. At some point in the field of struggling with children issues to integrate them into the SDG implementation, it was not an easy thing, but then when I stumbled on SDG number 4, target 7, that the UN even already said by 2030, all learners ought to be equipped with the knowledge and skills. Then we added from the faith aspect that values and attitudes. Then how can we have this happen? It is only by empowering the teacher who talks the language that the children understand. I've seen in revolutions, people fear empowerment, that an empowered community can really be as dangerous to your agenda if it is not a pro-community, or it can be a so good agenda. So for these SDGs, now that we are talking of Africa Agenda 2063, there is already the feeling that we know we have not achieved. For how long will we keep on pushing this agenda? And reality is hurting. So what we need to do is, can we refocus and appeal to organizations, both government and non-governmental, refocus to empower the teachers, refocus to focus on not just the knowledge and skills. I have the knowledge to plant trees. I have the skills to do that. But why are we not pushing until the government says it is a tree planting national day? Even when they say so, we will politicize things and say whatever was said about it, but they're not telling you go and plant in the president's yard. They're telling you go and plant the tree in your own place, as long as it is anywhere on the planet. Empower the teacher to empower the child. Number two, when you talk about, look at the last year's theme for World Environment Day, beating plastic pollution. Plastics is the greatest menace. We talk of recycling and all these things, but when we look at the most polluted place, it is the aquatic life. Technology will be so key. For us, we are already old. We can't learn technology to become our careers. How will we have technological engineers? I have seen a robot that can go into the ocean to pick litter from the bed of the ocean and bring it, my imagination, it brings it up to a hovering drone to pick the plastics, then take it to a shore where there is a recycling plant. But what happens now, we attempt to clean the drainages, then we heap the litter on the side of the drainages. When it rains, it all goes back there. What technology, where do we invest the technology? In these guys. If you want that, when I was talking about the drone, the cedar drone, somebody had to travel all the way from Switzerland to come and assemble it. Why shouldn't we invest in these young people to know that you can fly this, I can become a drone engineer, can make this, so that next time we don't need somebody to come all the way from China to come and how do we say, sell for or make for us the electric cars. As we are struggling to say no to carbon, what are we saying yes to? Do we have the capacity to transit to this? Then if we don't have, let us teach these people these eco-friendly energies, technologies, all things that we are thinking about, invest so that it starts early. By the time they reach our time, their careers will be ecological engineers, there will be robotic engineers who are picking. You go to the slums or the informal setup, you find the waste that is there, the majority of it is diapers and the pads that are used, sanitary towels, which are non-biodegradable, or if they take too long. What will, even if you love the environment, picking that becomes a problem. But with technology, you can make the robots, the AI for human good to make this. Who will do that? You can't start learning about it. You are still already a journalist. This guy can do it if he's guided. So with the resources, with empowerment, goodwill, and unity of purpose, co-opting teachers in your programs, giving these people opportunity. We are discussing about the COP29. Who is going to represent the children in that COP29? How will I struggle to get them here in class, but you have to struggle walking around to look for organizations? So this organization will just use the children for events. You saw the African Summit that was here last year. It was in Kenya. And I'm not having an issue with the child who spoke on behalf of the children. But the child was not Kenyan. We are hosting the event. Why can't we empower every child so that when it is in Uganda, it's a child in Uganda doing that? All children empowered. So empower in a teacher, then the teacher will empower the children, and the future will be secured.
Thank you so much, Mwalimu. Very, very interesting points there. And I'm going to save Aidan so that he will have the last word. So I want you to think about the most surprising thing you've found out about climate change and the advice you'd give another 9-year-old who is going to be watching you. And then I'll come back to you. Sawa? So Joseph, your final remarks, and you know, you're a climate tech engineer. So suddenly you really understand some of the points that Mwalimu Kasisi was making in terms of making sure that we have those skills. But yes, what are those things as you sit there and you're looking at all the gaps that we have and what we need to fill, what we need to quickly address as a country?
Thank you. Quickly, we need to address our mindset. You know, funny thing, I have some friends here and we did some experiment last week. If you Google right now, Africa, agriculture, then you go to the images tab, what you're going to see is that picture of an old woman carrying a djembe or with a djembe and a kid on the back or a kid on the side trying to help the mom. If you Google the same, agriculture Europe or agriculture Americas, what you're going to see is like huge tracts of land with tractors, you know, some fancy gadgets of irrigation and so on. And you know, so simple stuff that I think we can do. We can really redefine the spaces of everything that we have because, in my opinion, the biggest challenges that Africa has, number one is poverty, and number two is addressing the climate crisis. And if you can find your way through any of those, then you create impact and you create value. And there's so much that we can do. We don't, as he said, we don't really need to import all the technologies. We can make technologies that are used by other people. And if we can't, then we can shamelessly copy what other people elsewhere are doing in the world. And that's what Apple does, you know. And there's no harm in that as long as it's working. I've met some people here when we were having tea. I've met a young man who is recycling waste from vehicles and repurposing that to advertisement materials. That's something that we can do. We don't need the government to come in and to help us to do that. Yes, they can be our client, but we don't really need some policies to change so that we can be able to do that. I've met somebody here also doing stuff on honey and value addition on honey. You don't need a lot to do that. The capital is extremely cheap for you to set up a beehive and start something. You know, I think we are our own impediment to growth, and that's why I think it's more of a mindset thing that we need to change internally before we now go and say Serikali's idea, because the truth is the government can only do so much that is in their power. But we are the majority, the young people, the unemployed people, and so much, and a lot of us here in the private sector. And it is what can we do in our own small spaces to redefine what agriculture means. What can we do? For example, let me give you a startup idea if you're looking for ideas. You probably came here using Basigo, which is an electric bus. That bus uses lithium. Lithium is not, those batteries are not done here in Kenya. Can you try and think of a way that you can recycle those batteries because they have a short lifespan? That car is a bit heavier than normal buses, so the tires are going to run out a bit faster. Can you think of how you're going to repurpose those tires? Because in like 5-10 years, you're going to have like a lot of waste from these batteries, from these tires and so on. Can you start thinking of what can we do about that? Can we upscale that? Can we rescale that into something else that can be used for some beautiful stuff? We have so much resources within us. We have so much potential lying here with us. The conversation has been a lot about Nairobi River and everything else. I mean, it's a shame, come on. We have 50-something million people and we can't think of how to clean a river. You know, we can't come up with something that can help us either stop polluting or take up all the pollution that is being emitted into the river. 50-something million people, all our brains together. You know, I think...
So Joseph, you're saying the talent is there,
Yep.
the ideas are there.
Yep.
So is it that the young people are not engaged enough on issues of climate change? Or where is or is it just mindset?
Mindset, and you need to step up.
Okay.
If you don't step up, no one will step up for you. And if they step up, they'll step up for themselves. Thank you.
All right, Joseph. Thank you so much. Mana, your final remarks and where we need to head as a country, as a young woman leader in this space. And of course, also just looking at young people, what is your advice on people who really want to do something about climate change? Where do we begin?
Okay, so mine will be a call to action. First of all, because this is a Nation Media Group-led initiative, I'd like to speak to our journalists, to our media organizations, and I'd like to ask you to help us pass the mic. Because most of the spaces that we see are people who are common, like we see the same faces every day, making the other people, in this climate space, we are so much of us. There are people doing initiatives, brilliant work that constantly lack this space because of the lack of visibility, limited resources to push their advocacies to, put these initiatives out there. And it is the work of our media organization, our journalists, to ensure that there is inclusion, there is uplifting of these initiatives, that youth-led solutions get visibility in our, even local stations, not really so much about international spaces. My other call to action will be to our leaders, because I have experienced this so much. Like that blank look that a leader, let me not mention a specific designation, a leader gives you that takes you back from motivation to zero, because they don't believe in what you're saying. And as I had echoed before, the problem of climate change really requires a lot of ambitiousness. We don't settle for small solutions. We talk about solutions that are holistic, solutions that are innovative, as my colleague here mentioned. So I need our leaders to believe in us, to give us a seat on that table, and not to be on the menu, but rather to participate in building that solution, and to resource, support, and basically pump into those youth-led initiatives.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mana. Now, to the man of the hour, Aidan, I now give you the mic, the opportunity to close for us this panel discussion. I asked you to think about one surprising thing you found out about climate change as you were learning more about it, and your advice to somebody who's as young as you on issues of environmental conservation, sustainability, and the climate space.
So, the most surprising thing I've learned is how global warming works, the greenhouse gases, and the carbon dioxide, methane, and so on goes up into the air and passes through the ozone layer. Then there are small holes in the ozone layer. So when the methane and carbon dioxide passes, and it will come back because of the sun's heat, it will infect, it will pollute the air, the water, and other stuff. So what I'll tell a young person like me, I'll tell them I used to litter.
Put your mic near your mouth. Yes. Good.
I used to litter quite a lot, but then I met Mr. Kasisi. What I'll tell a young person like me is that you think that just a few bottles won't do that much, but it does quite a lot.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That was 9-year-old Aidan Kahiga. He is in grade 3. I believe that's true, Mwalimu. Yes? Oh, 8. I'm sorry for adding one extra year. So yes, thank you for correcting me. Aidan Kaiga is 8 years old, grade 3 at St. Mary's School in Nairobi. And once again, congratulations, serving as the Cabinet Secretary for Climate Action at the school's Environmental Club. A round of applause for Aidan. And Mwalimu, thank you so much, Mwalimu Kasisi Daniel. You're doing an incredible job with these young kids, and we can certainly see the difference and certainly hope in the future these are the guys who are going to shape the future for us. That is Kasisi Daniel, primary school teacher at St. Mary's School in Nairobi, the co-founder of the Eco Changes Initiative, a decade of experience in teaching, and of course, as the focal point for the Teachers for SDGs e-learning course, he integrates sustainability into education. Thank you, Mwalimu. Joseph Ngudhiru here. Joseph is a climate tech engineer, passionate about sustainability. You could see his witty side as well, and is transforming livelihoods through positive impact. He talked about MC2. He is the co-founder of MC2. It's a startup that leverages AI as an early warning system for deforestation, among many other startups that he is working with. And of course, Mana Omar. Mana is a climate scientist by profession. She's a climate justice and gender advocate for the indigenous pastoralist communities of Kenya, and also the founder and CEO of Spring of the arid and semi-arid lands. I believe that's correct? Fantastic. Thank you so much. Lady and gentlemen and young gentlemen, we appreciate your time, and certainly these young people, these are the key ingredients in this conversation. So certainly I hope we've learned a thing or two about their contribution, their leadership, and of course why we need to empower more young people to partake in this conversation. Once again, thank you so much. My name is Zainab Ismail. I hand it over back to you, Winnie.
Great. Thank you very much, Zainab Ismail. Truly, truly learned a lot from the conversation, and very, very much impressed by Aiden. I mean, think about when you were 80 years old, would you even, first of all, sit in a panel and talk like that? Think about it for a second.